Nebuchadnezzar, Parak Mem Tes. We're holding in the middle of the Parak. Last thing we mentioned last week was Rabbi Chachinai Omer, that a difference between the Golus of Mitzrayim and the Golus of Bavel, as opposed to all other Golus. By Golus of Mitzrayim and by Golus of Bavel, Hashem said how long the Golus is supposed to last for. By Mitzrayim, Hashem said it's going to last for 400 years. By Bavel, Hashem said it's going to last for 70 years. So those two Golus, Hashem said how long it's going to be for. With the Golus that we're in right now, Hashem never said how long it's going to be for. Okay. No one turn it off because it's making noise. No? Okay.
Can't hear a thing.
What? Really can't hear?
Can't hear anything. I hear only your sweet voice.
Here. Okay.
Well, this is good.
Now, Golus Bavel was when Nebuchadnezzar came, and there were a few stages of Golus Bavel of exactly what Nebuchadnezzar did, that he did in stages, and we said that Golus Bavel is supposed to last for 70 years. So there's different ways of counting where the 70 years begin and where the 70 years end. So the Medrash over here is not necessarily going to touch on that, but it does touch on something which brings us to that topic. And in fact, the Gemara in Megillah on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis discusses the 70 years of Golus Bavel in the context of this discussion that Pirkei Eliezer is going to say right now. Okay. So it says, Rabbi Abahu Omer, Arboim v'chamei shonim molach Nebuchadnezzar. Rabbi Abahu says, Nebuchadnezzar was king for 45 years. And now the Medrash is going to give the calculation of how he arrived to the cheshbon that he was king for 45 years. You should know that this is true, because Boyurei, come and see. Bishono shemolach olo liYerushalayim v'kovash es Yehoyakim melech Yehuda. In the year that Nebuchadnezzar became king, so the Radal changes it to the second year from when he became king. I think that's really what it's supposed to say. The Gemara in Megillah says that in his first year Nebuchadnezzar captured Nineveh, and his second year he captured Yerushalayim from Yehoyakim. So when it says Bishana Shemolach, you have to understand this in light of the custom of Babylonian kings, that the year that they became king is not counted in their, it's called regional years. It's not counted. It's counted for the previous king's last year, because they only count full years. So only a year after you became king, that's your first year.
It's not like us.
Right.
We count even one day.
Right. So Nebuchadnezzar, in his first regional year, which is technically the second year of his actual reign, he went to Yerushalayim and he conquered Yehoyakim, who is the king of Yerushalayim. Shinamar, because it says in the pasuk in Daniel, B'shna shalish l'malchus Yehoyakim melech Yehuda, in the third year of the king Yehoyakim melech Yehuda, ba Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel Yerushalayim, Nebuchadnezzar king of Bavel came to Yerushalayim, and he caused pain to Yerushalayim, and he besieged it, and basically what he did was he let Yehoyakim remain king, but that Yehoyakim was sort of a vassal to Nebuchadnezzar. You could be king, but I'm really on top of you. So it says the Medrash, Shmoyne shonim molach al malchus Yehoyakim. For 8 years, Nebuchadnezzar ruled over the malchus of Yehoyakim. And after those 8 years, he decided he doesn't want Yehoyakim to be king anymore. He changed it to one of Yehoyakim's, I believe, his brothers, whose name is Yehoyachim or Yechanya. He has two names. And he became king, Yehoyachim or Yechanya, and he was king for 3 months. And then Nebuchadnezzar changed his mind again and said, I don't want this guy king. He took Yehoyachim, he captured him, and brought him back to Bavel as a what's it called? As a POW, as a prisoner of war. And then he put up another king, Tzidkiyahu. And Nebuchadnezzar reigned over the malchus of Tzidkiyahu for 11 years. This is 19 years altogether that Nebuchadnezzar reigned before the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And then when he went and he decided to depose Tzidkiyahu, the next time he went back to Yerushalayim, that's when he actually destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and then Bavel completely took over Eretz Yisrael. There was no Jewish king anymore. Actually, that's not true. There was a Jewish governor, Gedaliah, and he was murdered afterwards. But Al Kapana, that's what happened.
But what was his problem?
Whose problem?
Nebuchadnezzar.
What?
He didn't wasn't he getting paid? Or what was, they didn't have to call it at the end?
So the Midrashim talk about exactly what happened. I think Tzidkiyahu was, when he was in Baal, so he saw Nebuchadnezzar eating a rabbit, which is considered a live rabbit, which is considered an overly cruel thing. So Nebuchadnezzar made Tzidkiyahu swear that he's not going to tell anybody about this. And then Tzidkiyahu went and he told people about it. So that's what got Nebuchadnezzar angry, and that's why he ended up attacking. I don't remember the other kings why Nebuchadnezzar decided to switch him out. But so it happened in stages. First, Nebuchadnezzar came and conquered Yehoiakim, replaced him, ruled over him for 8 years, then replaced him with Yehoiachin, then replaced him 3 months later with Tzidkiyahu, and then finally he destroyed the Beis HaMikdash. This is 19 years into the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, or in his 19th regional year, which technically is 20 years. After the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Esrim Voshay Shana. Nebuchadnezzar was king after the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed for 26 years. How do we know that? You should know that this is true. Come and see. Min Golosi Hayachin at Shemolach Ivam Rudach B'noi Shloishim V'Shem Shana. From when Nebuchadnezzar came and put Yehoiachin into Golus until Nebuchadnezzar died and Nebuchadnezzar's son Ivam Rudach took over, is 37 years. Shneimar, the pasuk. Vayhi b'shloshim v'shem shana legolus Yehoiachin melech Yehuda b'shem asar chodesh b'esrim v'shiva l'chodesh. In 37 years, in the 37th year after Yehoiachin was taken captive to Bavel, in the 12th month, on the 27th of the month, meaning the second day of Hanukkah, Nasa Ivam Rudach melech Bavel v'goymer es reish Yehoiachin melech Yehuda b'beis kela. Ivam Rudach, the son of Nebuchadnezzar, decided he's going to take Yehoiachin out of jail. Nebuchadnezzar had him in jail. Ivam Rudach takes Yehoiachin out of jail. And the pasuk tells us this happened 37 years after Yehoiachin went into jail. So this teaches us that when did Nebuchadnezzar die? He died 37 years after he brought Yehoiachin into Bavel. Now, so we say that after that happened, he was king for 11 years over Tzidkiyahu. So if you take 37 minus 11, you get 26. So now you know that Nebuchadnezzar died was king for 26 years after Tzidkiyahu. After he destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, he was king for 26 years. So if he was king for 19 years before, and he was king for 26 years after, how many years was he king for? 45. That's the cheshbon of the Medrash. And this cheshbon is also brought in the Gemara in Mesachas Megillah on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Now, there's a few things to discuss over here. The first thing is like this. There's a Medrash in Medrash Rabbah, Vayikra Rabbah, in the beginning of Parshas Acharemes. The Medrash says that we find in a lot of ways that Tzadikim and Rishoyim, there's a parallel between the two. So the Medrash in Vayikra Rabbah, Parsha Chaf, Siman Aleph, says that Shlomo Melech and Nebuchadnezzar, there's a parallel between them. Well, it says, Zeh bana Beis HaMikdash, u'malach 40 shana, v'zeh hichri Beis HaMikdash, u'malach 40 shana. Shlomo Melech built the Beis HaMikdash, and he was king for 40 years. And Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and he was king for 40 years. So this Medrash seems to say that Nebuchadnezzar was king for 40 years, not for 45 years. So if you look on the page, we have the Sefer V'loi Oid Ela from Rabbi Yomi Izmir. So he says two answers. He says that, 5 years doesn't really make so much of a difference. Or he says that 45, when you say 45, you say 40 also. So really it's 45 years, like the cheshbon over here. Just the Medrash, since it's wanting to make a parallel between Shlomo and Nebuchadnezzar, so it said 40. But it was really 45. The Eitz Yosef says on Medrash Rabbah over there, he says a little bit differently. He says that it means at least 40 years. Shlomo was king for 40 years, and Nebuchadnezzar was king for at least 40 years. The point is that there's a certain parallel between the two.
It's a true statement.
Not denying the 45 years it says in the Revelation.
Right.
It's a true statement.
Included in 40 is 45.
He
It's at least 45.
40 years.
So trying to make shalom between the yourselves.
Yeah. Now, there's another issue over here like this. According to archaeology and according to Greek historians, Nebuchadnezzar was actually king for 43 years. That's what they say.
Well, he almost nailed it.
Or maybe 44 years. What? But not 45. But they say he was king for 43 years, basically. They found archaeological evidence, and they found documents and letters written for every single year of Babylonian kings. And for Nebuchadnezzar, they only found documents up to the 43rd year and not further than that. Hundreds and hundreds of documents, and all of a sudden, 44, there's no 44. So what do we do with that? So there's a very interesting book that came out recently. It's called The Challenge of Jewish History by Alexander Houle. He asked this question, and he says that there's a story in Sefer Daniel, that Daniel Perek Gimel Perek Dalet, that basically it's speaking from the point of view of Nebuchadnezzar. That what happened was Nebuchadnezzar basically had a dream that he had a whole dream, and Daniel interpreted the dream. That basically what it means is that Daniel told Nebuchadnezzar that what's going to happen is that one day you're going to go crazy, and you're going to turn into an animal and run off into the forest and act like an animal, and then one day you'll regain your senses and come back. That's what it says in Sefer Daniel. This is what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. He turned into an animal for 7 years, and then he came back. Now, we have midrashim already that say this, that in the interim, when Nebuchadnezzar was out of commission, so his son, Evil Merodach, took over. We mentioned his son, Evil Merodach, which, by the way, the word Merodach is related to the word Marduk, which is the Babylonian Avodah Zarah. So he named his son after his Avodah Zarah. But Evil Merodach, according to the midrashim, took over for Nebuchadnezzar when his father turned into an animal, went crazy and turned into an animal for 7 years. So this book wants to taina that what happened was that his son took over for 7 years while he was out of commission. The first 5 of those years he was ruling in the name of his father, and the last 2 years he makes a whole cheshbon that Nebuchadnezzar's father-in-law died at that point, 5 years after Nebuchadnezzar went crazy. He says that at that point, Evil Merodach decided he's gonna rule in his own name and make himself king, and then that happened for 2 years, and then Nebuchadnezzar came back, and the Medrash says that he took Evil Merodach and he put Evil Merodach's son in jail because it was like a rebellion. I was gone, and you took as king. I'm supposed to be the king. You're not supposed to be the king. So according to this, we can easily understand why the archaeological evidence seems to say that he was only king for 43 years and not for 45 years. Because 2 of those years, Evil Merodach was king in his own name. They called it, when they wrote documents, they called it the first year of Evil Merodach and the second year of Evil Merodach. And then, when Nebuchadnezzar came back, they continued off from whatever year Nebuchadnezzar was up to in his own numbers. So it's true that in the archaeological evidence, there's 2 years that are missing, but that's because his son took over during those 2 years. But really, his whole reign was 45 years.
So what is the archaeological evidence holding that it was like he was king for 43 years continuously, or there's a...
No, so the main evidence is just from these documents. And the documents are dated. It says Yud Tes Cheshvan, the first year of Nebuchadnezzar. And this 38th year of Nebuchadnezzar. This, etc., etc., etc. For every year they have tons and tons of documents, except for after the 43rd year.
Oh.
So they only dated the documents to 43 years.
Excellent. So it wasn't in the middle, or was it in the end of those?
No, it was in the middle. Because let's say he was king for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Let's say what year was it that he went crazy?
So
Yeah, 18 year. It was in 18th year he destroyed Yerushalayim. 2 years later he went crazy. He had a dream. 2 years later he had a dream, and then a year later he started to go crazy. So 3 years after Yerushalayim was destroyed. So the 21st year of Nebuchadnezzar, that's when he went crazy. So he was crazy for 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Right? So what happened was 26, his son took over for those 7 years, but 21, 22, 24, 25, 26, they still dated documents to Nebuchadnezzar's name. The last 2 years, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, they still dated documents to Nebuchadnezzar's name. 26, 27, instead of calling it 26 and 27 of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, they called it 1 and 2 of Evil Merodach. And then, in the year 28, Nebuchadnezzar came back, but they restarted counting from year 26, from where they left off. So he came back. So his 28th year in archaeology is recorded as his 26th
They
year.
ignored those 2 years.
Right.
They didn't count those like if it was like missing or just like
Right.
disappeared. Just
Exactly.
ignored it. Okay. Recalculated.
So that's what they do with the archaeological evidence. Okay. Another point is like this. The Gemara Megillah is discussing. We mentioned a pasuk at the end of last week. We said that Golos Bavel is supposed to be 70 years. It says in a pasuk in Yirmiyah, it says Ki lefi melois levavel shivim shana. When it'll fill for Bavel 70 years, that's when the Geula is going to happen. 70. Now, the Gemara says, how do you count those 70 years? So there were 3 ways of counting the 70 years. 3 different there are 3 different ways of counting it, and 2 of them are a mistake. I'll explain. Belshazzar. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, so like this. Nebuchadnezzar, we said, reigned for 45 years. Yeah. Then, according to Chazal, his son, Evil Merodach, reigned for 23 years. 45 plus 23. And then the next king, his name was Belshazzar, he reigned, in his 3rd year was the downfall of Malchus Bavel. Now, Belshazzar, before the downfall of Malchus Bavel, Belshazzar made a cheshbon of the 70 years. He figured like this. It says in Yirmiyah Ki lefi melois levavel shivim shana, that when 70 years come for Bavel. So he wanted to count 70 years from the beginning of Malchus Bavel, from the beginning of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. That's when the Geula is supposed to happen. So you have 45 years of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, 23 years of Evil Merodach's reign. Then you have in the 2 years of Belshazzar, that's already 70 years. So now in the 3rd year of Belshazzar said, 7 years passed and the Geula never happened. Elamai, Hashem forgot about the Jews, and I'm going to make a whole party. And that's the famous story that Belshazzar made a whole party, and he brought out the kalim from the Beis Hamikdash and everything, and a hand wrote on the wall, Minei Minei Tekel Farsin, and basically that night the an alliance of the Persian and Median armies came and overtook Belshazzar. Question: who exactly killed Belshazzar? Maybe it could be one of his servants killed it. Could be one of the. That's what Yosef brings down. Could be the army came in and attacked them. Whatever. But that was the end of Belshazzar. So one way of counting the 70 years, as the Gemara in Megillah says, is 70 years from the beginning of Nebuchadnezzar's reign until the 2 years after Belshazzar's reign. That's one way of counting the 70 years. Now, Stam, you should know that according to archaeology, what I said before is not so pashut. I said before the way Malchus Bavel went, it was Nebuchadnezzar for 45 years, and then Evil Merodach for 23 years, and then Belshazzar 2 years, and then in his 3rd year. That's not so pashut according to archaeology. They write, according to archaeology, they've decided that Evil Merodach was only king for 2 years after Nebuchadnezzar. And then after Evil Merodach died or was killed, so somebody else took over. His name was Nargel Sharetzar, who they say was the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar, and that name is actually mentioned in one of the generals of Nebuchadnezzar's army in Sefer Yirmiyah, Nargel Sharetzar. He was king apparently for 4 years, and then his son named Labashim Rudoch was king for less than a year, and then the next guy was Nabu Naid, who was king for 17 years, and then his son was Belshazzar. So they have a slightly different story. It could be that Stam, the Seder Olam, when it was going through the stories of Malchus Bavel, didn't feel the need to speak out all the names, so it just said 23 years of Evil Murdoch, but doesn't literally mean that Evil Murdoch was king for 23 years. It just could mean that it was 23 years between Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar. I guess that's what you would have to say if you feel that this is a question. Yeah. Now the next thing is like this. Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar till the end of Belshazzar is from the beginning of Nebuchadnezzar's reign till the end of Belshazzar was 70 years. But we said that was a mistake. That wasn't what the 7 years was supposed to be. So what's the 7 years supposed to be? So we have the next mistake. The next mistake was somebody named Achashverosh. Now we know that what happened was that Nebuchadnezzar captured Yehoiakim, we said, in the first of his original years, and he ruled over Yehoiakim for 8 years, and then in the next year, in his 8th year, was when he took Yehoiachin out and brought him back, put Yehoiachin in as king, and then 3 months later took him back to Bavel. What's known in Chazal as Golos Yehoiachin, or Yehoiachin. So Achashverosh decided that the 70 years actually count from then. Not from when Nebuchadnezzar became king, but from when Golos Yehoiachin occurred, which was 7 years later. 7 years after Nebuchadnezzar became king. So Achashverosh made this cheshbon as well, and we're going to see in a moment how Achashverosh decided that the 7 years is up, and then he decided to make a party as well, and that's the beginning of Megillas Esther, the party of Achashverosh. So this is the cheshbon of Achashverosh, Pashtus. Basically, what happened was after what we're trying to find right now is 7 years from the end of Belshazzar's reign until Achashverosh's 3rd year, because the party happened in the 3rd year of Achashverosh's reign. So we have the end of the year of Belshazzar, because remember we're only counting kings from after a year. Their first year is counted as the end of the previous king's year. So the end of Belshazzar's reign. And then first was Daryavish of Modai. He was king for a year after Belshazzar. And then afterwards was Koresh of Poras, who apparently was Daryavish of Modai's son-in-law. And Koresh was king for 3 years. And then comes Achashverosh, who Pashtus was Koresh's son, and Achashverosh was king for 2 years. And then after those 2 years, he decided, that's 7 years now. He decided, well, that's 70 years from Galus Yehoiachin, and Hashem didn't go and save the Jews. Party time. So in his 3rd year, he made a party and did a similar thing as we're going to see. He brought out the Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash and whatever. So that's Achashverosh's cheshbon. That's Pashtus, how the cheshbon works according to Seder Olam. That basically after Belshazzar, there were according to Seder Olam, there were 4 kings after Belshazzar: Daryavish of Madai, Koresh of Paras, Achashverosh, and Achashverosh's son. His name is Daryavish of Paras, or some people call him Daryavish II, who was actually Jewish because he was Esther's son, and he's the one that made the base that decided they're going to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, and he's also the one, Pashtus, that Alexander the Great conquered and brought about the Greek period. That's the way Seder Olam understands it. 1 second. In Sefer,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
If it's 70, Esther starts, according to his count, it's 70 years. And according to our tradition, which I don't know so well, 70 years since the destruction, then it was rebuilt.
Oh,
So how could his son be the one to give the order?
because
Why is it him in the year of the party?
be,
So I don't understand.
because really we're not counting 70 years from Golus Yehoiachin. We're supposed to be counting 7 years from the Golus of, let's call it Tzidkiyahu, which is when Nebuchadnezzar destroyed the Big Mikdash, which was 11 years afterwards. So if you make the cheshbon, Achashverosh was king for 14 years, which is 14 minus 3 is 11, right? And then Daryavesh, who took over after him, he's the one who built the Beis Hamikdash.
And he must have been a child.
He was definitely a child. He was like 6 years old. But yeah.
You said that Alexander conquered Esther's son. But there's a difference of at least 200 years.
Oh, I'll tell you. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that in a moment. But that's the pashtus. That's the pashtus, as it says in Sefer Daniel. It says in Sefer Daniel, first of all, in Parak Ches, Daniel when he's speaking to Belshazzar, Daniel gives basically a vision that Belshazzar is going to be taken over by Paras and Madai, and then what we mentioned as a sphere ha'izim, like a wild goat or something, is going to come and attack Paras and Madai. And we said that wild goat is actually a reference to Alexander the Great. We mentioned this in Parak Yud Aleph when we spoke about Alexander the Great ruling over the world. So he's called the sphere ha'izim in Sefer Daniel. But in Daniel Parak Yud Aleph, when Daniel is speaking to Daryavesh of Madai, that's the first king after Belshazzar, in the first year of Daryavesh of Madai, because we know that Daryavesh of Madai was only king for 1 year, or only reigned over Bavel for 1 year after he destroyed Belshazzar. So he says, Daniel in Parak Yud Aleph says, "V'ani b'shnas achas Daryavesh hamadai omdi lamachzik l'mo'ezloi." I was helping him out. V'ato emes agilach. I'm going to tell you the truth. Hine oy shloisha melachim omdim leparas. There's going to be 3 more kings for Paras. V'ravi Yasher Oisha Gadol Mikol. And the 4th one is going to be very rich. V'skaskoi be'oisha Yoir HaKol. And because he's going to be rich, he's going to irk people's jealousy and attention, and Ace Malchus Yovan. And he's basically going to get Malchus Yovan to be jealous and go and attack him. And then a strong king is going to come from Yovan, and he's going to rule a Memshal Rav, a large sovereignty. And he's going to do whatever he wants. And then, when he stands up, his kingdom will be broken up. It will be broken into 4 corners, 4 directions of the heavens. This we also spoke in Parak Yud Aleph. We said that after Alexander the Great died, so his kingdom split into 4 different types of kings. Where we had the Ptolemies and the Macedonians and the Secluids. How do you pronounce that again? Secluid, something like that. Seleucids, yeah. So that's Alexander the Great. Says Rashi. Rashi is going with Seder Olam in Daniel. Rashi says Rabbi Sinu said Daniel said there's going to be 3 more kings for Paras, and the 4th one is going to be very rich, and then the Greeks are going to take over. Rashi says. 3 more kings. He's talking to Daryavesh of Madai. The 3 more kings is going to be Koresh of Paras, Achashverosh, and Daryavesh, who built the Beis Hamikdash. What mean the 4th? The 4th one means the 4th of Madai, which is really going to be the 3rd of Paras, being Daryavesh of Paras. That's what Rashi says. Now, before we touch on the other issues, let's go weiter in Pirkei Eliezer. It says in Pirkei Eliezer, Rabbi Yonasan Omer, Soif Malchei Madai Paras Haya Achtach Shasta Melech Bavel Ushleishim Vishtayim Shana Molach. The last king of Paras and Madai was somebody named Artach Shasta, the king of Bavel, which the Radal identifies with Daryavesh, the son of Achashverosh, in following the Mahalach of Seder Olam, and he was king. It says here Shtemes Shana, but the Radal says it's supposed to say 32 years. Shneimar, it says in Pasuk, Uchaz Eloi Yisi B'Yerushalayim, etc., and it says that he was king for 32 years, basically. Daryavish the second was king for 32 years. And the Rada has a whole cheshbon that really the Fi Seder Olam, if you work it backwards, so it should come out that Daryavish was actually king for 36 years. He wants to make a cheshbon like this, that one of the nevuahs of Daniel, this is an interesting thing, one of the nevuahs of Daniel where he speaks about, what's it called, Shiva Shvuim, 7 weeks, literally means weeks. But Chazal understood that Shiva Shvuim means 7 periods of 70, which Chazal explained means 7 times 70, which is 490. As I was going through this, you probably thought of this before, but I was thinking that that's probably why Chabad Hasidim found significance in the number 770, which was the address of the shul in Crown Heights. Because Daniel speaks about something that has to do with Mashiach, and there's 7 70s. Am I right? Like, well, if the address was 342, like would they find it significant that it's 342? Here, this is like a special number, 7 70s. Not sure, but Al Kapanim, 490 years.
7 being the multiplier, or the other way around. One is multiplying.
Right.
7 to.
Right, 7 times 70, which is 490, and the Gemara in Mesechus Avodah Zarah Daf Tes makes a cheshbon that the Chazal understood that for that 490, there were 490 years from the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash to the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. So we know that the Golus was 70 years. So from this we understood that the second Beis Hamikdash stood for 420 years. So if you do 420, the Gemara says 420 minus 180 years of Greek prominence in Eretz Yisrael, minus 108 years of the Chashmonaim, minus 108 years of the Herodian dynasty, you get 34. And so the Gemara is saying that there were 34 years from when the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt until the end of Malchus Paras, till the beginning of the Greek period. Which, if we counting from when the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt, which was in the second year of Daryavish, basically it comes out that Daryavish was 36 years king, not 32 years king. That's what the Radal points out. Akupanim, fine. So here the Pirkei Debelazar is more or less going with the Mahalach of Seder Olam, that there were 4 kings from after Belshazzar until Alexander the Great. There were Daryavish of Madai, Koresh of Paras, Achashverosh, and then Daryavish of Paras. And he was conquered by the Greeks, Pashtus. Now, the next thing is like this. So we said that the 4th king in Daniel's Nevuah is Daryavish. Now Pirkei Debelazar is going to bring a dissenting opinion. Rabbi Tanchum Oimer. Rabbi Tanchum says, "Boy urei oshrei shel Achashverosh." Come and see the riches of Achashverosh. Achashverosh was more rich than all the other kings of Malchus, Paras, and Madai Paras. About Achashverosh, the pasuk says, and the 4th one will be very rich. So now, Pirkei Debelazar is bringing an opinion that we never had before. It's saying that Achashverosh is the 4th king, not Achashverosh's son. So what do you do with that? So really, if you look at Rashi in Sefer Daniel, Rashi also brings such an opinion. Rashi says, "Aval b'Sefer Yosef ben Gurion kasuv shahaya lebein lekayrish shemolach tachtov lifnei meloich Achashverosh u'shmoi Cambyses." Rashi quotes from Yosifun, which is sort of related to the Sfarim of Josephus. That Josephus sort of writes that after Koresh had a son who was king after him named Cambyses or Cambysu. Rashi says Bambisu, which is I think it's a typo. And he was the king before Achashverosh. So according to this opinion, according to Yosifun, the 4 kings are like this: Daryavish of Madai, Koresh of Paras, Cambyses, Achashverosh was the 4th one, and then afterwards we had Daryavish, the son of Achashverosh, and then could be there were other kings afterwards. That's what it comes out according to this second explanation of Rashi, and that's really what it's saying over here in Pirkei Debelazar, that Achashverosh was the 4th one of these kings. Seder Olam, it's not Seder Olam, it's Tzemach David, which is a sefer from the son, a Talmud of the Ramah and the Maral. I don't have the sefer with me, but Seder Darius quotes from the sefer Tzemach David. He says like this: in the year Gimel Alafim Shin Tzaddik, Tzemach David writes like this: Malchei Paras novoichu rabim b'misparam. The kings of Paras, many people have been confused about the numbers of the kings of Paras. Even though in Seder Olam, as we mentioned, it says that Paras Amade only had 4 kings. But according to Pirkei Eliezer, there were more. And he also mentions Rashi in Sefer Daniel. So there were at least 5, not just 4 according to Seder Olam. Furthermore, the Tzemach David quotes from all kinds of Greek historians a whole bunch more names of Persian kings that existed supposedly before Alexander the Great conquered the Persians. So what do you do with that? So the Tzemach David asks this question. It's a famous question. He's the first one to ask this question, as far as I understand. The Tzemach David asks this question, and he says, "Look, you have Chazal's Kabbalah going up against what the Greek historians say. Of course, we don't care what they say. We'll go with what our tradition says." And that's what Tzemach David says. We go with what our thing says. But if that was the question, then that can be the answer. However, nowadays we have archaeological evidence that supports all these, more or less supports the Greek historians over the notion that there were only 4 kings, because we have all kinds of other kings that are mentioned in documents and whatnot, and other such things. So that's what this book also talks about. This book, The Challenge of Jewish History, from Alexander Hull. And basically what he claims is that what's known for sure is that a king named Daryavish was conquered by Alexander the Great. The question is, which Daryavish are we talking about? And the historians want to say that it was Daryavish III, who was, as Rabbi Felders pointed out, about 200 years after the construction of the Beis Hamikdash. And in fact, some people want to say that the Beis Hamikdash lasted for 200 years more than Chazal tell us. Josephus writes that the Beis Hamikdash lasted for like 600 something years. Not like Chazal tells us that it was only 420. But basically what this book wants to say is that really Daryavish of Paras, the first, the son of Achashverosh, he was the one that was conquered by Alexander the Great. And the second, if you include from Madai and Kharabi. But basically he was the one that was conquered by Alexander the Great, and all the other names of Persian kings that we have happened afterwards. Alongside the Greek Empire, there was what he calls a weakened Persian Empire, and those are all the other names that we have. Yeah, you have to look. He has a whole, I don't know if you could call it a conspiracy theory about how the Greek historians sort of wanted to hide this and wanted to make it look like the Greeks completely after the Persian period was the Greek period instead of being concurrent with it. And he has a whole arichos about it. If you want, you can one day you could maybe try to look at this book if you're mamish interested in it. But this is a question that's been bothering a lot of people. Rav Schwab famously also asked this question, and he wants to look at it. Rav Schwab wanted to say that Chazal hid 200 years, a very shver answer that he was chayzer himself from. But Akupanim, that's the mahalach over here. One more point before we continue, that if you actually look, Rashi said from Yosifun that Koresh had a son named Cambyses. He was the king before Achashverosh. If you look at Yosifun, Rashi, it doesn't even say that. It just says in Yosifun, in the Sefer Aleph, in the end of Perek Gimel, it says that Koresh died and his son Cambyses took over. Perek Daled, it talks about the story of Achashverosh, and then at the end of Perek Daled, it talks about how Daryavish, the son of Achashverosh, was taken over by Alexander the Great. Actually, that comes up in Perek Hey. But it doesn't say straight out in Yosifun that Achashverosh was a son of Cambyses, which would make it that he'd be the 4th king. This book claims, and he brings pretty convincing proofs for it, which we're not going to get into, he claims that Cambyses is Achashverosh. Cambyses is another name for Achashverosh. So if you say like that, then you don't have what Rashi in Daniel says that there was that he was the third king, and then Achashverosh was the fourth king. Okay, I'm not sure exactly what to make of it. Fine, let's go later. So we're speaking about the riches of Achashverosh. What was the riches of Achashverosh? Achashverosh set up beds of gold and silver in the town square to show the whole world his riches. And Rabbi Yomi Izmir says, why in the world did Achashverosh put up beds of gold and silver in the town hall, in the town square? What was he trying to accomplish? So he says a few different points over here. That basically he was trying to show that, like, I don't care if dirty, disgusting people, tamei people, whatever, they could sleep on it and mess it up or whatever. I'm so rich that it doesn't bother me. You can mess up my beds, you can do this, whatever. It's my gold and silver. Also, he wanted to show that, in my kingdom, people were so rich that what the king uses and what the common people use, it's the same thing. It's all the same. We have so much money that we could just waste it around. Another point that he makes is that a bed, you can take apart the bed and steal it. So he's saying that I don't care if people come and take apart these beds of gold and silver and they steal it and take it home. I'm so rich that even if they steal all the stuff that I put out, I still have so much more. He points out also that Achashverosh could just keep all his riches in his palace and also show off, but he could put it outside on the street in the open so that it looks like it's even more magnificent. All the different vessels that Achashverosh used, he didn't even use silver. He only used gold. Gold is the best, the spitz. He only goes for the best. And what did Achashverosh do? Achashverosh took out the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash. I'm not sure exactly how to read this, but what I think it means is that once he took out the kelim of the Beis Hamikdash to show off at his party, so the kelim of his own personal kelim, they miraculously turned into lead. Like he had his gold stuff out or whatever. Once he brought out the stuff from the Beis Hamikdash, his stuff turned into a lower level of a lower metal, a less precious metal. The Radal explains that how you read it is like this: the kelim and the vessels, mikelim shoinim, they became different from other vessels. The other vessels, the vessels of the Beis Hamikdash, made it that his vessels became different. That's how he wants to read the pasuk. And the floor of his palace was embedded with precious stones and pearls. Shneimar, it says in the pasuk, Al ritzfas bahat voshesh v'dar v'sechores. It says ritzbas in my edition of Perkei Elizabeth. It's a mistake. It's ritzfas without a dot in the fei. Fine. Rabbi Eliezer says Rabbi Eliezer, Chatzi shana osa Achashverosh sudos gedolos l'chol ha'amim. Achashverosh made for a half a year, Achashverosh made great meals or great parties for all of the nations. Shneimar yomim rabim, many days. Shmoinim u'ma'asiyim, 180 days. His party lasted 180 days. Says the Radal, and the Maral in his Pirush Or Chodesh on Megillas Esther also points this out, that 180 days is basically half a year shy 2 days. 365 divided by 2 is 182. So 180 days is 2 days less than half a year. And the Radal wants to say that these 180 days, this half a year of Achashverosh's party, was in the summer, because it says that he did it b'chatzer ginas bisan hamelach. He made it out in his courtyard. So if it was going to rain, it's not such a smart idea to make a party out in your courtyard. So the Radal assumes that Achashverosh made this party in the summer. Be as it may, the Radal makes an interesting cheshbon. It says that Achashverosh started his party, he wants to say on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, beginning of let's say the summer months. and 180 days later comes out on Gimel Tishrei. And then it says that he made another party for 7 days for the people of Shushan. That comes out to Yud Tishrei. Okay? And then on the 7th day, that's when the story of Vashti happened. On the 7th day. What's that 7th day? Yud Tishrei, Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was the day that Vashti was killed. Says the Radal that Yom Kippur we know is the day of Rachamim. Because Baruch has Rachmanis and Kal Yisrael. And so what the significance of it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was makdim the refuah to the Makkah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu already took care of Vashti and made it set up the way that Esther could become the queen before the whole story of Haman even happened. And that's the side of Yom Kippur. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makdim the refuah to Makkah. That's the racham and that Hashem exhibits to Kal Yisrael on Yom Kippur. The Maral in Aruch Chodesh and Megillas Esther in the beginning has a whole arichos about exactly why Achashverosh made 180 days and 7 days. What's the significance? Whatever. He has a whole shtick of Torah. I don't want to get into it right now. But also I found that the Rikeach, Pirush Rikeach on Megillas Esther also says that the 180 days was in the summer, like the Radal and the Maral say. The Radal, interestingly, has a Pirush on Megillas Esther, and the Radal over there says a different pshat in 180 days. He says, why did Achashverosh make party 180 days? Because Achashverosh was king over 127 provinces. And so he said that also Achashverosh had one advisor for each month, for each week of the year, or a special advisor for each week of the year, which and the last and a year is a little bit over 52 weeks. So let's call it 53 weeks. So 53 advisors plus 127 provinces, each one had their ambassador, is 180 officers or diplomats or whatever. So the Radal says that Achashverosh made his party 180 days. Each day he honored a different diplomat of these 180 diplomats. That's what the Radal says over there in his Pirush on Megillas Esther, not over here in his Pirush on Pirkei Eliezer. Another point is that I'll say over quickly the Maral, what the Maral says, why 180 days and 7 days. He says that 180 days represents summer because there's 180 days of summer, 182 days of summer, 182 days of winter. Well, 180 the summer is when things are blossoming and growing, and the winter is when things are withering and dying. So it says that Achashverosh made his party 180 days in the summer to represent that, just like Hashem gives a shafa and makes things in the world grow and produce. So Achashverosh is saying, no, I'm like Hashem. I'm the one who gives kaichos to the world that things can blossom and grow. I'm really the leader. And then Achashverosh also made a 7-day party because connected the 7 days of creation. Achashverosh is trying to show that just like Hashem created the world in 7 days, so I'm making a party for 7 days. I'm showing that I can be mashpia for 7 days as well. Achashverosh is trying to show that really he's in charge of the world. That's more or less what the Maral says. So one more point before we go weiter. The Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz in Yeres Dvash in Chelik Aleph Trush Gimel says that this party, 180-day party, actually happened in the winter. It says that it started in Tishrei and ended in Nisan. So he says dafka in the winter. We had all these other mepharshim that said it was dafka in the summer. He says it was dafka in the winter. He has a whole reason why he says that. I don't want to get necessarily to it. Fine. Later, anyone who ate betara, people who were makbet to only eat food that was tar, they would, by Achashverosh's party, they would be makbet to give him food that was tar, meaning that it didn't become tamei. Anyone who ate food that was tamei, they would eat food while it was tamei. What says in the pasuk, last is kirtzon ish v'ish, to do whatever each and every person wanted. At the party, they had whatever you want, they could accommodate you. Different types of foods. This is it. Last is kirtzon ish v'ish. Rabbi Shimon says, Kol min ogesh al malchei modai, the minhag of all malchei modai was that kishahayu oichlin v'sheisin, when they would eat and they would drink, hayu mevin l'nishayim gluyos b'sar eva. They would bring out, when they were eating and drinking, they would bring their wives out with their B'sar Erva, with their nakedness revealed. Misachar case, Umuraktis Lefnehem. And they would be playing and dancing in front of them. Kedei Li'es B'Yafi Taran. So that people could see how beautiful their wives were. Now, we're talking about Paras, not Madai. So why does the Medrash say Madai? So the Radal says that there's a Gemara in Brachos. Rabbi Epstein, you probably know this. The Gemara says that Oyevanias are Parsoim for different reasons. Dafches. Oyevanias are Parsoim, and one of the reasons is because they're Tznuis. The Persians were Tznuis. So here, when we're talking about things that weren't Tznuah, so we don't speak of the fact that they were Persians. We speak about the fact that they were Medians. Okay. So they bring out their wives naked to go and dance and make fun in front of them. When the wine came into the heart of Achashverosh, so he wanted to do the same thing to Vashti. He wanted her to come out and naked and play and dance in front of everyone. But Ubat Melachim Haisa, Vashti was the daughter of Melachim. The Radal brings a medrash that says that Vashti was the daughter of Belshazzar. And says that when Daryavish came and conquered Belshazzar, so Daryavish was sitting there on Belshazzar's throne, and Vashti, a little girl, didn't realize that it wasn't her father. She thought that Daryavish was her father. So she went and she sat in her lap, on his lap, and he's like, hey, she looks very good, I'll take her for my son. The problem is that Achashverosh is not Daryavish's son. So maybe he meant grandson, because if Daryavish was Koresh of Paras' father-in-law, and Achashverosh was the son of Koresh, so then Daryavish of Madai was the grandfather of Achashverosh. Maybe it means grandson. I'm not sure. But that's what this medrash says. What?
From some different source, I think everyone heard it, that Vashti was Nebuchadnezzar's granddaughter.
Oh, right. So the Gemara in Megillah says that Vashti was Nebuchadnezzar's granddaughter. So if Belshazzar was the son of Nebuchadnezzar and Vashti was a daughter of Belshazzar, okay, fine. Now you have to know exactly who Belshazzar was and how Belshazzar was related to Nebuchadnezzar, and if Vashti was a daughter of Belshazzar. In the Targum on Megillah Esther, it says that Vashti was a daughter of Evil Meruch, who was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, I don't want to get into that. This whole thing about the years and the names of the kings and everything is like such a complicated sugya.
We saw a few times that maybe son doesn't mean son, but grand.
Yeah, that's true. No, but the context of the Gemara and Megillah is Dafka granddaughter, because it says that Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to wipe out. It's a Gemara and Megillah on Daf Yuramid Beis. It says, "V'kamti leim v'chrati l'bavo shem v'sher v'nin v'neched ne'um Hashem." And the Gemara says that she'er is lashon, shem is ksav, she'er is lashon, nin is malchus, v'neched is Vashti. So okay, it could be that granddaughter just means descendant. Could be, I don't know. Okay, so Achashverosh wanted Vashti to come out naked and dance and make fun for everyone. Okay? But she's a daughter of kings. She's royal blood. She didn't want to do that. She didn't accept to herself that she would come out in front of him naked. She sent a message back to Achashverosh and she said to him, Ish shaita shikr, you stupid drunk man. If I come, and they see me, like this. She said a very good time. She said, if I come out and they see that I'm disgusting, I'm not beautiful, they're going to make fun of you and disparage you on your own table. And if I come out and they see that I'm taka beautiful, then there's two gersais over here. Either it says then maybe one of your servants is going to, or one of these diplomats or whatever, is going to kill you so that they can marry me. Or they're going to want me, so they're going to kill you and try to take me. So either way, there's no reason why I should come. If I'm beautiful, if I come out, if it comes out that I'm not beautiful, they'll just make fun of you. If it comes out that I'm beautiful, then they're going to want to kill you and marry me. So it's not a good idea for you to ask me to come out. It says in Medrash, what was Achashverosh's reaction to this? So the king heard her words, and he commanded they should kill her. Why? It says Rebeliomi Izmir in V'lo Yoed Ella. It says because once Vashti sent this message to Achashverosh through the royal couriers. So now Achashverosh became paranoid. Wait, but she is beautiful. So maybe they're gonna they're gonna take her idea and kill me, and so that they can marry her. So I don't want that to happen. So I'll get rid of her, and then they won't want to do this. In his drunken mind, that he was thinking that maybe they're really going to do that. Therefore, he wants to kill her right away, so he won't get into any problems. So he killed her, and then when he sobered up, he requested Vashti the Malka, and he couldn't find her. So his officers told him about the gzera that he made on her. Because it says, whatever, the Radah says that they're dashing the pasuk because it says that Achashverosh remembered as Vashti ve'es asher nigzar aleha, that which was decreed on her. It doesn't say that which he decreed on her. That which nigzar, it happened on its own. The gzera happened on its own because he wasn't in the right frame of mind when he made this gzera. The Achashverosh started to cry about this gzera that he decreed on her. Okay, fine. So now the Medrash is going to darshan why did this happen to Vashti? Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu bring about that this decree should be decreed upon her? Because Vashti used to bring out the Jewish girls naked and make them do malacha for her on Shabbos. Kadosh Baruch Hu basically paid back Vashti. She had the Jewish girls working for her naked on Shabbos, so the gzera was on her that on Shabbos, because it says that it was Bayom Shvi'i, which Chazal understood means Shabbos, that she should be shechted naked on Shabbos. That's what that's the drasha of the Medrash. Fine. Rabbi Zechariah Omer Megaglin Zchus Al Yidei Zakai. Rabbi Zechariah says that we bring about good things for good people. How so? Al Yidei Daniel Shaya Memuchan Nizgalgul HaMalchus Al Esther. Through Daniel, who was Memuchan, it came about that Esther became the queen. If you look in the Psukim, it says that Achashverosh didn't know what to do when he was looking for Vashti. He couldn't find her. He didn't know what to do, so he went to his 7 advisors. And the last one of the names was Memuchan, and then Memuchan was the first one to answer back. And Memuchan said, "Oh, you should make a beauty pageant to decide what the next queen is." So the Medrash is dashing that Memuchan is Daniel, and Daniel he was a good person. So because of him, this good thing happened that Esther became the queen. Now, if you look in the Gemara says that Memuchan was not Daniel. The Gemara says that Memuchan is Haman. That's why if you ever go to the laning of Megillah Esther, so every time they mention Memuchan, there's always a Uber Chacham who starts banging by Memuchan, because the Gemara says the Memuchan is Haman, and the Gemara says that wait a second. If you look at the 7 advisors that it lists, so Memuchan is mentioned last, as if to imply that he was the least chashuv of Achashverosh's 7 advisors. Yet he was the one that answered back. It says Vayam Memuchan. So how could that be? So the Gemara says, "Mikan shahadit kaifis breish," that the hedyot, the stupid person, he jumps in and answers back, even though it's not his place. He doesn't recognize his place. If he asked his top 7 advisors, and the lowest advisor is the one who gave the answer. That's the midah of the hedyot kaifis breish. We also find that by Lavan and Besuel. That's what the Gemara says about Memuchan. So I have a question. If Memuchan is Daniel, like it says in the Medrash, so what do you do with the Gemara? That Mikan Shahedi Kavis Barish. Daniel is a chashuv person. The Gemara is not trying to criticize Daniel, call him a Hedit. So, but why is it that he's listed as the last of the 7 when it's listing the names of the advisors? He was the one that answered back first. Well,
because the Gemara says it's not him, it's Haman.
Right,
So
fine, true. If you look, the Gemara L'Shita says true. But according to us, according to Pirkei the Blizzard, that Memuchan is Daniel, so why does it mention him last and then he answered back first?
It's the most chashuv.
Well, that's why he mentioned last.
The Gemara doesn't predict that one. The Gemara can't apply if you just insert. Because it went through all of them and it couldn't answer, and he was the most chashuv.
I know. So I was thinking like this. If you look in Pirshrei Keach, on Megillas Esther. So the Pirush Rekech says that Achashverosh had 7 advisors for 7 days of the week. Basically, that's what he says. So if we're talking about the 7th day of the week, because this we said the story happened on Shabbos, so he's listed last because it's listing in order. So this is his advisor for Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos, and he answered back first because it was Shabbos, and he's the advisor for Shabbos. I think it's a partial answer. Okay, but let's just finish off the parak quickly over here. Where are we? Memuchan said to the king, "Don't cry. Everything that you did to Vashti, you did it ketera. You did it legally. You did the right thing. And anyone that keeps to the mitzvah of the Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will keep his kingship, his kingdom. It says in the Torah, the man will rule over the woman. And if Vashti did it to you, so she deserves it. According to the Torah, you should be able to kill her. So you're making what the Torah says. So don't worry, don't cry. You're making what the Torah says. You're doing a good job. That's what Memuchan told Achashverosh. Okay.
According to this, you can't live in Talmud.
What?
According to this, you can't live in Talmud.
I don't know. The king sent out messengers to all the places of the kingdom, to all the provinces, to do like what Memuchan says. Achashverosh sent out letters that everyone should be able to rule in his own house. Like Memuchan said that I should be able to rule in my own house. Void Omar, also Memuchan said, Yivakshu lamelech ne'areis besulais v'gomer. You should look for the king for ne'areis besulais, virgin girls. Ne'areis v'loi kol ne'areis. It says ne'areis, girls, v'loi kol, not all girls. El ne'areis yifeister, dafko, beautiful girls. Shenemar v'ane'ara asher tita be'enei hamelech, the girl that's going to be good in the eyes of the king, meaning the girl that's the most beautiful. I don't know why the Marzul doesn't like this pshat, but that's what it seems to say. That's the one should be the queen. And it says after that, it says that the Nara, Esther, was good in his eyes. So you see that's what he was looking for. He was looking for a girl that looks good in his, a girl that's beautiful. Kadosh Baruch Hu put upon Esther chen v'chesed, charm and kindness in the eyes of all those that see her. Shneimar v'hatihi Esther neises chen be'enei kol re'ah. That Esther was neises chen, she was charming in the eyes of all those that saw her. Okay, have a good talk. Thank you for coming.